Hello and welcome to the Navy Blue Corner. I'm Ian, and unfortunately it's another solo pod this week. It's been an absolute shocker from Lockie and myself. We've both had these really important last-minute scheduled work meetings, and they really just caused absolute chaos in both of our schedules. So here we are. You're stuck with just me again this week, but we will do our best to make sure that we are both together to record next week. But look, that's enough podcast admin to start this episode. Let's jump straight in to our round 16 Carlton versus Richmond preview. And I was reflecting on this fixture, this rivalry, when writing the run sheet for this episode. And I think in the last 20 or so years, it's really been this tale of only one of these teams can be good at one time. It's, looking back, previously, we were dominating Richmond in round one. You'd basically just pencil it in every single time that, okay, that's a 50 to 100 point belting every single time. How good's this? And then the table flipped. Richmond had one of their most successful periods in club history. And it's really only been over the last few years we've been able to finally claw some wins back. And, at one stage, we hadn't beaten Richmond for 8 seasons. We finally got that win round 1, 2022. And since then, the record has been a 25-point win for us, a 5-point win, a draw, and a 15-point loss. That's 2 wins, 1 draw, 1 loss. And I think most of this Richmond team, they still don't respect Carlton. And to be honest, fair enough. They have toyed with us for years. And even in our wins, we've never really gotten that handle on them. I'm looking at round 1 this year. Richmond came out of the blocks. They were there fighting with us the whole time. It didn't matter that Richmond are starting their rebuild, that they're not that good anymore. They still don't buy into it that Carlton are this superstar team because their memories are not of that. And we just haven't had that big statement win that really sets the tone and lets Richmond know that this is our fixture now. It's going to be a world of pain every time you play us from here on out. And I think that's what I'm, building up as the important piece of this game is that Richmond right now, they're floundering in 17th position on the ladder, second last. They're at the start of their rebuild. We're sitting second on the ladder. We're beginning our period of hopefully success and dominance, the premiership window, as a lot like to say. And I think this is our real opportunity to give back that hurt and make this fixture one where Richmond players are dreading it for the next 5 to 10 years, maybe the way that we did when we were down the bottom for so long, and just flipping that tide once and for all. And that was really going to be the question that I was going to lead in to ask Lockie straight away, talking about the way that we beat Geelong last week, what this fixture is, knowing that we're coming up against a team that's out of form, sitting second bottom, can't seem to really get many wins and great performances. Is, do we need to see another big demolition-esque performance against Richmond like we saw against Geelong? Or is it just about getting the win? Doesn't matter what the performance is, just continue to bank these wins, get them however you need to, and just keep pushing away from the rest and cement yourself as that second spot on the ladder. And it's really the interesting part of this. And I want to know all your thoughts. So if you're watching on YouTube on Blue Abroad, drop it in the comments. Do we need that performance? Is that what's going to make you happy from this game? Are you going to walk away from this if it is just a 5-point win and be disappointed? Or are you in the other camp that it's not necessarily just about the performances? We have shown enough against enough teams now that the wins are kind of all that matters. The performances aren't necessarily the be-all and end-all. That's the interesting point. I think where I stand is really that it is about the performance right now. We're in that process of building our resume, showing that we are the contenders. And it's not just about doing this week in, week out to let others know. When I'm looking at this fixture in particular and the history, like I talked about at the start of this episode, with Richmond, we have not made that statement to them. Even now that we're starting to win these fixtures, we have not demonstrated to these players that have hurt us for years that we're the big dogs now. So I think it's about time that we absolutely wipe the floor with them. And I don't think that that's an arrogant thing to say. I just really believe that a statement victory over Richmond will just set the tone for years to come, where they will now dread this fixture. They won't think that they're a sniff. They won't think, oh, we've got Carlton. They're not that big. That's their grand final. They're not going to have that sentiment anymore. Carlton versus Richmond is going to be Richmond's big game because they don't have any anymore. And I want them to be thinking every time they come up against Carlton, shit, they beat us by 100 points last time. It's going to be another world of hurt. So I think a big performance is almost more important than just the win. But I mean, conversely, let's be real. If we just get the win, however you get it, it's all about banking them, getting that top 4 spot. I won't begrudge a 5-point win, but I know I definitely want more. So let's jump straight in because I'm doing this solo. I'm going to need the help of you guys. So I'm going to go straight into the questions, grill the corner. We chuck them out on Instagram and Twitter every single week. The socials are at Navy Blue Corner. They're in the description, in the show notes. So if you ever want to get into contact with us, send in a question. At Navy Blue Corner is the place to do it. Now I'll start with one from Tim Gigantor, who asked, with the upcoming games against Richmond in 17th, North in 18th, West Coast in 16th place on the ladder, do you see us resting any players in this period to freshen up for finals? And if so, who do you think we rest? Now, this is a very interesting question. I would say my overall answer is yes. I think you will see some more management throughout the back half of the season. Hopefully, if we are continuing to get these wins, we're in a good position where you can afford to manage a few players. I think that's a smart thing to do. A lot of good teams do that in world sports all around the world. That's what happens. I'm a big soccer fan, so that is something that will happen all the time when you've got a big European fixture or a big Premier League fixture. The game before it, if it doesn't necessarily matter, you can afford to pull one of your superstars for 1 week, just get their body right and make sure they're fresh for finals or the bigger games. And I don't believe it'll happen this week because we've just come off the bye. Feels like that's not the right time, but as we progress through the season, I definitely see it happening. And I don't know, it might be about the player. What comes to mind immediately is Paddy Cripps because of his combative, very physical game style, the way he plays. A rest is probably good for his body. However, he does strike me as that player that a rest might be bad for him in the sense that he just doesn't want to slow down. He doesn't want to stop. He wants to keep going with that momentum each and every week. So I wonder if he is that kind of player that body-wise would deserve but would be better off for the rest, or whether he is better to just keep plowing through each and every week and building that way. But I think you will see maybe those more injury-prone guys like a McGovern, maybe like a Sard who's had to manage a few soft tissue injuries this season. Those types of players, maybe a Zach Williams, they might be managed a few times this season, but it will be very interesting to see how we do it. We haven't really been in a position that has afforded us or allowed us the opportunity to manage players. Hopefully we can keep banking wins so we can do that. But let me know what you guys think. Should we be managing any players in these, lesser fixtures? Is that a bad mentality? And if you do think we should rest them, who comes out? Let us know in the comments on YouTube. Hit us up on the socials to give us your answer at Navy Blue Corner. And we're going to be talking about some players maybe coming in rather than resting from SC, who asks, will Marchbank, Motlop, Chera, and Pitternet play AFL or VFL this week? So this kind of gives a bit of spoilers for the blueprint to victory and my team changes. But I'm definitely not bringing in Marchbank at this stage. I just think our back seven is working so well right now. There's really no need to bring in a Marchbank, probably at his best performance of the season in the VFL on the weekend, which is really promising. I want to see him playing well. He's still hopefully got a lot to do for us for the end of the season, whether he's playing or not. Putting pressure on others is a big thing. And if for him to get that continuity with his body, with a bit of form, it's definitely going to be good for us. But I just don't think you can drop anyone right now, and there's really no need to. So Marchbank can continue building that form. Motlop is probably the guy I'd like to see come into this team. If I'm looking at spots right now that are up for grabs, the Durden Fantasia spot probably isn't nailed down from those two. That's where I can see Motlop coming straight in and replacing either one of those. And Chera, he's clearly, when fit, in our best team. You find a spot for him regardless. Maybe those two come out and I don't know who you move to the sub because of that. But Chera, coming off the hamstring injuries, he's had quite a few since the back half of last year. Weirdly, I'm not bringing him in this week. I think that's a controversial thing. I think everyone in the comments will be saying, no, Chera's definitely straight back in. We want our best players out there. However, I'm just going to take a bit of a cautious approach, and that's not trying to take Richmond lightly. I think we've shown over the last month or so in particular, without a Chera, the midfield's still been the best it has this season, and we're not missing him as much as I thought we might. He's still in our best. We still do miss what he brings. We don't have a lot of those, pacey, skillful, more outside ball getters. So I think that Chera is very integral to how we want to play. However, in saying that, I really just want to take the cautious approach with his soft tissue injury history of late. He's a test to play this week. Let's just give him one more week, and then bringing him in next week is my kind of play. But do you want to see him this week? And if so, what are your changes? It's always the fun part. Who comes in, who comes out is the big conversation. And I guess with Pito, God, it's really hard to change things up. De Koning is having the best form he's ever had in his career. All the stats are showing this is one of the best stretches, best months of footy for any ruckman ever in the way his stats are going right now. Not sure I'm going to tinker with that too much, but matchup-wise, maybe this is the fixture. You're looking at Nankervis, a big physical ruckman. However, when I'm looking at this, yes, I think this is maybe the best fixture to bring a Pito in, but that's almost why I don't want to do it, which is potentially a really weird answer, but I like the idea of let's see what De Koning can do now that he's in form, now that he is very confident in himself. We all might think this is a bit of a tougher matchup for him. I want to see how he goes. Let's test him out. Let's see what a athletic peak of his powers De Koning can do against that physical experienced ruckman like a Nankervis. This is a test. I want to see it. So I'm going the one ruck. Everyone else can play in the twos. Motlop really the only one I am asking to be brought in this week. But let me know what you guys think on that one. Another question comes in from Ed, who really, this is a big poignant one for I think a lot of supporters. He asks, what are the selectors seeing in Orazio Fantasia that most fans can't see? Because I think most of us are asking the question at times, why is Fantasia in the team? Why aren't they playing this guy or that guy instead? And it is an interesting one. When I think we spoke about this a while ago, and where we probably sat with it is it's clearly a role. There's clearly a lot of things that we don't understand that they're really liking, whether it's running patterns, creating space for other players because of where he's moving on the field, and whether his presence is lifting everyone else around him rather than him getting the possessions. And that's what they're liking, a bit more of a selfless role. And I think we kind of got to the point where we're saying that's good if that's what is happening. But at some stage, you've got to be winning the ball. You've got to be contributing with hands on the footy. And that's kind of what had been letting him down. Weirdly, I thought the Geelong game was one of his best this season. Playing this high half-forward wing role, pushing very high up the ground, being almost that extra around stoppages at stages. And I think that's something that maybe has been helping us at times, not having a guy like Chera out there, not having that burst away from stoppages or that cleanliness on the outside. Having a guy like Fantasia that has that bit of speed, has that acceleration away. He's got really good skills. His entry inside 50 has been really good the last few weeks. think that's maybe what they're trying to manufacture with a guy like Fantasia. Now, I think as soon as we start to get a lot of our players back, Cottrell, Chera, those kind of players, throwing a Motlop as well, once we start to get all those guys in, I will see Fantasia pulling away. But right now, there's clearly a role that the coaches are carving out for him each and every week. And with our lack of personnel, maybe even a Cunningham is another you can talk about playing that connector role. I think when we don't have those guys playing, Fantasia fits the bill. And yeah, we might not all like it, but I mean, if you're getting wins, I couldn't give a stuff who's out there right now. I will 100% back in these coaches to select whoever they want because it just seems to be working. And I think they've built up enough credit in the bank right now where you just back them in and say, go for it. Whoever I want to be in the team almost doesn't matter as long as we're winning. But what do you guys think about Fantasia and his role? What are you seeing that you're liking? What are you seeing that you don't? And who do you think will eventually replace his position in this team? And the last question I have comes from Austin, who asks, with Cincotta and Williams leaving the back line and Doherty also injured for the season, we're all of a sudden out of a bit of depth in that small defender stocks. Supposing an injury occurs and you send one of Williams or Cincotta back, or do you get creative with someone else? How are we solving this potential small defender shortage? And I find that very interesting. It's a weird one. I think it's easy to look at it and say there is a shortage, but you kind of almost answered your question a little bit there, that we do have guys like Williams. We've got guys like Cincotta that can go back there and play those roles. And while I think they've found better roles and better opportunities in different parts of the ground, you know, Motlop comes back and maybe Jack Martin gets fit at some stage and all of a sudden you can afford to chuck Williams down back, or Cincotta can play that defensive role again. I'm still not 100% sold on us needing to play Cincotta as this tagging, nullifying role each and every week. I think it's a great thing. It's worked really well. I'm enjoying seeing it. But I don't know, maybe when a Chera comes back in, Cottrell comes back into the fold and we start to get our best players in all those positions, do we need to have that nullifying tagging role? Or can we just back in our best players to get the job done and Cincotta can go back to playing that small defender? I think it's a good thing to have. And I still think Cincotta's in our best team. But I don't know. I don't think it's as much of a concern right now. Lockie Cowan stepped up and taken that role there. If there is an injury, God forbid, I think we've at least got enough guys to cover, and with hopefully a few other players coming back into the fold, if we do chuck a Cincotta or Williams back, we've got plenty of players that can take their current roles. So, yeah, I'm not getting too creative and throwing a Kennedy or a Hewitt down back. I'm not doing anything that silly for me. Not sure what you guys are feeling, but I think we're in a good position that we've got this depth. We've got this competition for spots. And again, I'm backing in the coaches to sort those roles out if there is an injury. But thank you for all the questions again this week. Makes it a lot easier when I don't have Lockie. I feel like I've got someone to bounce off. So that is Grill the Corner for this week. So let's jump straight into the blueprint to victory. And I wanted to start blueprint to victory talking a bit about learnings, because it seems as if we are really taking learnings and applying what we did learn 2 more games this season, whether it's a reverse fixture like against Geelong, whether it's just different things we saw not work earlier in the season. It feels like we're building. Talk about defense. Team defense wasn't amazing earlier in the year. Then we started improving that. We've improved the way we move the ball, how we were struggling around stoppages. That seems to be completely fixed. Our forward 50 structure is improving week in, week out. It looks like we are taking learnings from our previous encounters and righting the wrongs of losses and those performances going forward. And when looking at this fixture, yes, we won, but the performance wasn't amazing against Richmond. It was a 5-point victory. And I just want to cast our mind back to look at what we need to learn from that game and what I'm expecting to see in this fixture against Richmond. And very interestingly, I did a bit of a deep dive into a few of these areas when looking at the stats in this game against Richmond, round 1. We actually lost clearances in total by 6. We lost center clearances by 3, stoppage clearances by 3. Now, the only other games that we have lost both center and stoppage clearances this year was obviously that Richmond game, Freo that we won in a very odd defensive controlled game, and our Collingwood loss. Now, the only other 2 games that we have lost both center and stoppage clearances this year. Clearly, it's an out. These are outliers. This Richmond game was a bit of a shock, particularly when you're looking at Freo and Collingwood. They're teams you expect to be a lot better. Feels like it was a very off night for Carlton in that. And one of the stranger ones when looking at these stats is that we lost the contested possessions by 11. Apart from this Richmond game round 1, there is only one other game that we have lost contested possessions in this season. And that was against Sydney. They absolutely brutalized us, absolutely dominated us around the ball. Every other game, win or loss, we have won the contested side of it. So it feels like this last time against Richmond has not happened again against anyone else where we've lost both the clearances and contested possessions. So we've got to make sure that those areas we really dominate in this reverse fixture. We don't allow them to bully us around the contested side. And I remember sitting there at the time thinking this is such an off-brand performance for Carlton. They're bullying us at the stoppages. We can't seem to win a clearance. And that really allowed Richmond to get a bit of an advantage and keep in that game. Even though on the outside it looked like we were better, we were starting to kick away at stages. I remember that Charlie Curnow getting tackled, holding the ball on the goal line, that if he kicks that, we start to kick away. He doesn't. Richmond's contested side of the game, their stoppage craft, their clearances, kept them in that game, allowed them opportunities in front of goal. Just don't think you can do that this time. And we've improved a lot in so many other facets of the game, including this area, and particularly over the last month. So I definitely expect to see a big response. And I hope that Vossi and the coaches are highlighting that this week, are showing, hey, this is what happened last time. You've proven to every other team in the competition that that's not the way you play. It's time to show these boys that you've learned from last time and you're not going to allow it to happen again. Because I'm looking at Richmond as well, and it feels like that was an outlier for them. They are last or 18th for contested possessions. We're first. And that, again, highlights how insane it is that we lost against them this in the contested possessions. And to rattle off some others, they're 17th, second last in uncontested possessions. We're 11th. They're second last or 17th in inside 50s. We're 9th. They're last for center clearances, stoppage clearances, and tackles. We're first in center clearances, 5th in stoppage, and we're 3rd in tackles overall, which is insane considering how much of the ball we're winning. Our pressure is so high. And they're Richmond is second last or 17th for tackles inside 50. We're first. So clearly we're that front half pressure team. We're winning clearances. We're winning the contested ball. These are all facets of the game that Richmond across the board this season are horrific in. But last time we played each other, they beat us. They beat us in those areas. So it's going to be interesting to see how we match up against them this time around. I hope that we've learnt our lesson and looking a little bit at the players. There's no Lynch this time. There's no Prestia, which I can't believe, to be honest. It feels like every single time we play Richmond, all of a sudden all their players are fit. Lynch comes back to play his second game of the season. It's always us. Same for Prestia. Their forward line is an area that we can really, really exploit. Our defense has been one of the best areas over the last month. We've got that back line settled. The team defense is great. The pressure was perfect against Geelong. We bring that again this week. Not only will they struggle to get the ball inside 50, but they're not going to have the targets to deal with it. And we're going to have the defenders to intercept and pick that off. We've really started this transition game, this winning the ball and scoring from the defensive half. And I think that this is a big opportunity to continue that against Richmond. They've clearly still got some star players that can hurt us. I'm looking at Taranto, Bolton, Nankervis in the ruck, Liam Baker, and Daniel Rioli. So there's still enough class out there. You can throw Dustin Martin into that as well if you want to, if he does line up this week. They've got some top end It's just about everything else at the moment that isn't kind of working for Richmond. And I don't want to sit here at the end of the game and go, man, their stars still really hurt us. Let's completely send a message to these guys and let's nullify their influence on it. So let's go towards team selection. Now, talked about this a little bit earlier in the episode. Chera is a test to play this week, but I'm going to give him one more week. I just think that there's no need to risk him. Make sure we manage him correctly. Make sure he's 100%. Give him one more week and then bring him in against GWS next week. So my changes really are Durden comes out. He's no longer the sub. I'm moving Fantasia to on-field to the sub, and Motlop takes the place on-field in the forward line. Now, I know, again, Fantasia has been playing higher up the ground, but Motlop's been doing that in the VFL as well. The club have said for years they see Motlop having the tank to push up the ground and almost be an extra around stoppages. Can he evolve to have a few midfield minutes as well? So I do see Motlop being able to play that role. I also don't mind if we end up switching a bit of Zach Williams and Motlop at stages. Motlop goes deep. Zach Williams plays a bit more of a connector around the stoppage. We know his damage when he is around the ball. So I don't mind both of those can kind of pick up the slack for Fantasia's role if you want to go that far. And part of me is even saying that sub role when I'm looking at Fantasia. I almost want to play a Cunningham in that position. I love the idea of Cunningham as a sub, but he just needs way more footy before I'm wanting to bring him in. He's clearly not conditioned or ready to go for me. I mean, the coaches will know a lot more than I will how his body is tracking, but I just think he needs a bit more conditioning before jumping him straight in. But I think in the upcoming weeks, it'll be interesting with the sub because I love the idea of what the type of player Cunningham is and using that offensive, skillful, pacey weapon off the sub bench. I think that could be a way we do it. And really the other team selection headache is, do we bring in a guy like Pitternet given the strength of Nankervis? Think you can. I want to know how Vossi sees the ruck situation right now. I'm still a big believer that Pitternet's got a big role to play for us this season, but I just really want to see what DeConing can do testing him against a real physical ruckman now that he does have that confidence. But let me know your team changes for this week. Drop them in the YouTube comments. Who comes in? Who comes out? Who is your sub? And if you're listening in audio form, let us know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. And the last thing that we need to talk about before we wrap this up is, of course, the What Do You Want to See segment. Now, kind of alluded to it this whole episode. It's all about that performance that sets the tone for this fixture for the next 5 to 10 years. That statement win showing Richmond that we own this fixture now. We're the big dogs. That is my big What Do You Want to See? An absolute demolition of Richmond, a demoralizing victory is what I want. And I think that off that, the other thing that I do want to see is that I want us to humble a few of these Richmond players, the ones that have been there for that successful period, that have treated Carlton with a lot of disdain over those years, particularly Bolton. He's the one that I see when I think about players that I'd love to humble in this fixture. And I'd love us to go out there with the intention to hurt. And I mean that in a way like we did against Geelong last week. Hurt them with our pressure and our tackling. Give them nothing. I don't want to give them an inch. I don't want to sit here after the game and think, man, we let guys like Bolton and Rioli just run around us like they always do. Let's send a message that you can't do that anymore. We own you, Richmond. Especially given how poor we were around the contest and with our pressure in round one. Let's right that wrong, learn our lesson, and send the message to Richmond. That's what I want to see this week. But what do you guys want to see? Do we need that statement? Do we need that demolition performance? Or is it just about... Sorry, I'm losing my voice there. Or do we just need to win and keep banking the 4 points any way we can, regardless of performance? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're listening in audio form, hit us up on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. I'm keen to know your thoughts. and drop any predictions that you have for this game as well. I got very lucky with my Walshy prediction last week. So I'm going to leave it up to you guys in the comments to conjure up your predictions this week. Who's going to be Nostradamus? If someone gets a big prediction correct, we're going to be mentioning it on the podcast. Might start making this a bit of a weekly occurrence. You guys dropping your predictions in, and we'll highlight a few that do come true, because I don't want to test my luck. I've gotten the Walshy one correct twice. I think I need to give it a few weeks before I jump right back in and make myself look like a fool by getting one wrong. So let us know your predictions in the comments on YouTube, and let us know on the socials at Navy Blue Corner. But that is going to wrap this episode up. We're going to be trying to do 2 episodes a week. Like you may have noticed this week, our match reviews will be over on our Navy Blue Corner YouTube channel, dropping Sunday night / Monday morning. Whenever we can get to record that and edit it and get that out to you, it'll be out ASAP. With our match previews, of course, staying right here on the Blue Abroad YouTube channel every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. And in podcast form, they're exactly where they are each and every week. So make sure you follow and subscribe wherever you listen and watch us so you never miss an episode. And let's get around the Blues for another big week, another demolition win, this time against the Tigers. Up the bloody baggers. See you guys next time.